Welcome to this premises licensing meeting, liquor licensing meeting. A roll call, we have all three, Councillor Henwood, myself, Councillor DeBell, and Councillor Brown. Therefore, there are no apologies, we're all here. I need to receive any declaration of interest from members in respect of any matters on the agenda. There are none. The procedure the licensing panel will follow in considering the application is set out in the Licensing Act 2003, its attendant regulations, and was agreed by the licensing committee on the 2nd of February 2005. The licensing panel, in accordance with Rule 14 of the Licensing Act 2003, Hearings Regulation 2005, decide to exclude the public from all or part of the hearing where the licensing panel considers at the end that it is in public interest to do so, and also during the meeting if necessary. I would like to confirm the minutes of the previous meeting. I understand that Councillor Brown was at this. Can I have a vote from the three of us to actually accept the meeting? That's absolutely fine. So the meeting from the last meeting minutes are accepted. And now we move on to the thrust of the meeting, which is...
Sorry, Chairman, sorry to interrupt. I think it might be handy with so many people here today, and probably for the first time, if I read the meeting regulations with regards to how this meeting will be conducted, just so everybody is clear. Well, good morning, everybody. Regulations have been introduced to enable the Council to hold its meetings to include participants attending remotely. Consequently, the following procedure will apply to this meeting. During the meeting, all participants will be in control of their own microphone. You should set your microphones to mute until such time as the chairman invites you to speak. If you wish to speak, you should indicate this by activating your raise hand function, which should be found in your participants list. Be patient, the chairman will know that you've indicated a wish to speak and will get round to all participants. And the chairman has absolute discretion as to the order in which he invites participants to speak. When the chairman indicates you can speak, you must unmute your microphone. Once you've finished speaking, you will need to mute yourself again, and please remember to lower your raised hand. If you do lose connection to the meeting, try to reconnect by using the same calendar link and password which you used to get into this meeting now. On occasions, it may be necessary for the chairman to take advice from officers, and this might cause a slight pause in progression of the meeting. Should the chairman wish to adjourn the meeting at any time, he will advise the meeting that it is adjourned and at what time it will reconvene. All participants, please, are asked to remain in the Zoom meeting with their microphones muted if this should occur. Once the members have heard the representations from all parties, the public meeting will end, and the members will retire to discuss the application. A decision will be made within 5 working days of the meeting, and a letter will be sent to all participants and any other parties who've made written representations but did not attend the meeting. Thank you, Chairman. That concludes the virtual meeting explanation. Can I suggest it may be a good idea to ask people to introduce themselves at this meeting and indicate whether or not they will be speaking. As I say, there are a large number of people, and it would be helpful to know who's going to be speaking on the applications as well. Lovely, thank you. Also, when that's done, Chairman, can I just make a brief statement after all you found out who's who and who's going to be doing what? Lovely, thank you.
Please do, Franca.
Okay, do you want me to do it now before you do ask people to introduce themselves?
I think that would be a good idea.
Okay, right. The matter before the subcommittee today is to consider whether or not the application will meet the 4 licensing objectives, which is prevention of public nuisance, public safety, prevention of harm to children, prevent children from harm, and prevention of crime and disorder. The question before the subcommittee is whether the applicants can uphold the objectives and what conditions can be attached to the premises license to achieve this. Thank you, Chairman.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. Can I ask Mr. Early to unmute himself and introduce himself, and then Ms. Casey. Mr. Early, I don't know whether you can hear me, but we can't hear you at all. Would you like to introduce yourself, Mr. Early?
Right.
Now I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
I'm afraid you
can't hear me, sorry.
I'm afraid we can't hear you at all, Mr. Early. It's really, really distorted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, we
Turn
can.
your speaker off. Okay.
I'm sorry, Mr. Early, we can't hear you at all. Can I ask you to mute yourself again, please? And I'm going to ask Ms. Casey if she would like to introduce herself, and then we shall desperately try to come back to you. I do apologise that this meeting has to be virtual. It's the only way that we can actually hear this licensing application at the moment. Ms. Casey, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, yes, I'm Claire Casey. Also, I'd like to add that we've added some further information on the 8th of October. I don't know whether you're aware or you've got the pack that I sent to John Byron, just covering various points within the bundle.
So you're the actual joint applicant with Mr. Early?
Yes, I'm Mr. Early's business partner.
Thank you very much.
And yeah,
we shall come back to you shortly. I do realise that this is not at all ideal. I do apologise, but you will be able to speak later on. Can I ask, I believe Mr. Lloyd would like to speak later on after the application. Would you like to introduce yourself, Mr. Lloyd?
Yeah, good morning. I'm Mr. Lloyd. I bought the Fox Public House in 2004. I've been the premises licence holder since that date. I'm the freeholder and I'm the landlord of Mr. Early, who is the named tenant on the lease.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Lloyd. Is there anybody else that is going to be speaking this morning on this application? If you would like to indicate and let me know. There are no other indications, and therefore I understand that Mr. Early, Ms. Casey and Mr. Lloyd will be speaking. Before, I do believe that Mr. John Bryant would like to introduce, he's the Senior Licensing Officer. I believe that he would like to set the scene, so to speak.
do you want to come over?
Chair, thank you, members of the panel. Chair, I do believe that there is one other member of the public who may wish to speak, who's present, which is Poppy Lewis, just so you're aware as we go on through the meeting. But the matter before the panel today is the consideration of the application for a new premises licence. The report in front of yourselves is to provide information in order that you can determine this application. In summary, an application pursuant to Section 17 of the Licensing Act 2003 has been made by Mr. Timothy Early and Ms. Claire Casey for the grant of a premises licence at the Fox Eating and Drinking House in West Hopefuley. Two of the responsible authorities and the freeholder of the premises have submitted representations objecting to the application on the grounds of the prevention of crime and disorder, the prevention of public nuisance, and the promotion of public safety. Additionally, there have been a number of representations submitted in support of the application, which I will detail when we come to that. It should be noted by the panel that there is a premises licence currently issued in respect of this premises. This application is for the issue of an additional premises licence and is not a consideration of the current licence. There was some concern within the community that the current licence had either been revoked or not reviewed by the council, renewed by the council. People who made those representations have been informed it's actually for an additional premises licence and has no effect on the current one. The committee is therefore asked to determine this application in accordance with the Licensing Act 2003, the Mid-Sussex District Council licensing policy, and the Home Office guidance, which is issued under Section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003, whilst having due regard to the applicant's submissions and the relevant representations made during the hearing. Excuse me. The background to this matter is that Mr. Timothy Early is the current leaseholder at the premises. At this time, I believe he has around 13 years remaining on the lease, which was a 20-year lease. The freeholder of the property is Mr. Paul Lloyd, who you will hear from later. He is the premises licence holder for the current premises licence. Due to issues between Mr. Early and Mr. Lloyd resigned as the designated premises supervisor for the current licence and has not appointed a replacement DPS. And again, the circumstances surrounding that, I'm sure, will be outlined in detail to yourselves. It is a mandatory condition under Section 19 of the Act that no sales of alcohol can take place without a nominated DPS. So therefore, the current licence cannot be used, and this matter still remains unresolved in respect of the existing licence. Therefore, Mr. Early and Ms. Casey are applying for a separate premises licence for those premises in their own name. The application was correctly advertised at the site between the 21st of August and the 17th of September, and advertised in the Mid-Sussex Times on the 2nd of September this year. The applicants seek the following licensable activities, which is the supply of alcohol, both on and off the premises, Monday to Saturday, 10 AM till 11 PM, and Sunday, 10 AM till 10:30 PM. And the proposed opening hours of the premises are 10 AM to 23:20 and 10 AM till 22:50 on the Sunday. There have been representations made against the application, which have been received by two of the responsible authorities, these being the Licensing Authority and the Environmental Protection Team. And details of the representations are appended to the report. A representation against the application has also been received from Mr. Lloyd, as explained, the freeholder and current premises licence holder. And the main points raised in these representations from these three parties that are relevant relate to the licensing objectives of the prevention of crime and disorder, public nuisance, and the promotion of public safety. Understandably, the application has generated a large local interest in the West Hopefuley and surrounding area. And I received a total of 75 emails in support of the application. However, all representations, whether opposed or in favour of an application, must be relevant to the licence and objectives. Therefore, only 8 of these representations could be accepted as being relevant to the licence and objectives. The committee should be aware that reading the representations which have been appended to the report, which are in favour of the application, that some of the information contained therein is irrelevant for the purposes of the Licensing Act 2003. And I must remind the committee, you must focus on the relevant parts only and disregard the irrelevant matters when determining this matter. The police have agreed conditions with the applicants in respect of the application, which are appended to the report. And if the committee decides to grant the licence, I would request that a number of conditions offered in the operating schedule and agreed by the police be attached to the licence. And again, the full details are in the appendix. The applicants have also offered further conditions to reduce any public nuisance arising from music, and these are included in the proposed conditions. I shall now go through the representations, and the panel will be aware of the size of the report that there is a lot of information in there. I will briefly go through the representations, and obviously the representatives of the people making the representations can detail them a little more fully and be able to answer the committee's questions on them. Now, representations have been received from the responsible authorities, which is the Licensing Authority and Environmental Protection Team. The Licensing Authority's objections are received under the following grounds: the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, and the prevention of public nuisance. You will see that the Licensing Authority has detailed a number of incidents which have occurred at the premises, some of which has necessitated action being taken by the licensing team, and the full details of these matters will be explained to you by Mr. Bateman, who is representing the Licensing Authority in this hearing. The Environmental Protection Team have made objections that's on the grounds of public nuisance. Again, you have Mr. Adam Draycott, the team leader for the Environmental Protection Team, who will be able to detail the incidents that have occurred at the premises while under the control of the applicants, which have caused public nuisance to surrounding members of the public. And again, I'll leave it to Mr. Draycott to expand on his representations. The interested party representations are from Mr. Paul Lloyd. He's made objections on the grounds of the prevention of crime and disorder and the prevention of a public nuisance. As detailed, he is the freeholder of the property, and he is also the current premises license holder for the current license. He will explain to you the issues that he's had with the applicants over the past years. It's appended, his representations are appended to the report, but I'm sure he'll be able to explain further his representations to this matter. I would point out that Mr. Lloyd has also submitted, as part of his representations, a short video showing after hours drinking outside the premises, which the committee can either watch during these matters or during their deliberations. The interested parties representations in support. As stated, I received many emails in support of the application, and the representations that are accepted are detailed here. Unlike the previous representations where there are the representatives present to expand and answer the questions on their representations, here we only have one of the members of the public present, which is Poppy Berry, I believe. So what I will do is I will just outline the representations in favour to the panel. There's one from Claire Martin. She stated that she's not witnessed any crime or disorder on many visits. She states that the Fox does have bands play on various occasions which do create some noise while they're playing. She's not found it a public nuisance in the 15 years that she's lived there. She states that her back garden looks directly onto the Fox. She observes that the pub observed COVID restrictions and put in place necessary protective measures. Clive Martin states that his property is also adjacent to the Fox. He's lived there since 2006. In this time, he's never experienced any antisocial behavioural disorder by pub customers, and he's not been disturbed by the day-to-day activities. Mr. Dom Howard states that he was responsible for one of the live events at the Fox on the 3rd of July, which you will hear about from the Environmental Protection Team. He states that Mr. Early was keen to emphasise that the noise be kept at a reasonable level, and he therefore monitored the output levels at several different devices at different times during the performance. He states at all times the readings indicated that the sound from the band equipment confirmed to the 85 decibel limit, which he believes to have been in place during COVID-19. Again, Mr. Draycott will probably be able to assist you in respect of that. He adds he's been involved in several similar events at the Fox over the years, and he states that Mr. Early and Miss Casey have run the establishment, and at all times have been consistent that the band should play at a reasonable volumes and finish promptly within the set times. And he states this ably demonstrates the commitment from Mr. Early and Miss Casey to their neighbours. Mr. and Mrs. Bannister submitted a representation in support of the application on the prevention of public nuisance. They state, as residents of Hazelwood, which is located some 50 metres from the pub, they're one of the closest houses to the Fox and are well placed to comment on whether the running of the pub has caused public nuisance. They state they've experienced no issues apart from the first incident of outdoor live music this summer, which was quite loud. The following live events, they state, were much quieter and none finished at a late hour. They state that apart from this one incident, they don't consider that the running of the pub over the past few years has caused a nuisance to them. Rather, it's been run in a way they've been able to enjoy having the amenity close to their house. Karen Cashton stated she lives just across Finch's Field, never had any issues with noise. She states that she has not been disturbed by noise during licensing hours or at closing time, although she has heard bands on occasions. She states they don't disturb the enjoyment of her own garden and the events always finish at a respectful time so as not to cause disturbance at night. The representation made by Poppy, I believe that she is present and able to expand on her representation, but in essence she states that she lives opposite the pub. Post-lockdown, live music has been forward in timings in consideration to the neighbours and has not been a nuisance. She states that before COVID, when live music was performed, advance warning was given and the timings were kept to acceptable timings. She's aware of this because her young son's bedroom faces the pub and he's never felt disturbed. Sophie Abbott has stated that on the many occasions she has attended the Fox, there have been groups of young adults, they've always been well behaved and respectable. She's seen bar staff ensuring that they're over 18 before serving them. She further stated that it's safe and incredibly run establishment respected by people of all ages. The local bands adhere to the time set out to open and close. And she has seen people refuse drinks when they've had too much to drink, and she respects them for this. Finally, Susan Burrows has made comments that as far as she is aware, there've been no crime or disorder at the public house. She's unaware of any public nuisance and has good friends who live within 200 metres of the premises who've never had any issues or concerns and would indeed voice them if they had. I have added the full representations from all parties to the report. Now, the policy context is the committee must determine the application in accordance with the Licensing Act 2003, the Mid-Sussex District Council licensing policy, and the Home Office guidance issued under Section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003, whilst having due regard to the applicant's submissions and relevant representations. I have set out for the benefit of the panel Section 18 of the Licensing Act, which deals with the determination of the application, which in essence says that where relevant representations are made, the authority must hold a hearing to consider them. And having regard to the representations, take such steps as mentioned in the following subsection as it considers appropriate for the promotion of the licensing objectives. And the steps before the panel today are to grant the license, subject to conditions which you feel necessary. 2, exclude from the scope of the license any of the licensable activities to which the application refers. Obviously, the application refers to the supply of alcohol. To refuse to specify a person in the license as the premises supervisor, or to reject the application on consideration of the representations made and representations put forward by the applicant. To be relevant, the Licensing Act 2003 requires representations to address the 4 licensing objectives, which are the prevention of crime and disorder, the promotion of public safety, the prevention of public nuisance, and the prevention of harm to children and young persons. And a representation is a relevant representation if it is about the likely effect of the grant of the license on the promotion of the licensing objectives. The objector must establish that the consequence is a likely effect of the grant. Representations which do not apply or do not address the licensing objectives are not relevant. I have copied some guidance which has been issued under section 182 of the Licensing Act, which just details the context of a person, applications in joint names, and the fact that there's nothing in the 2003 Act which prevents an application being made for a premises license at a premises where a premises license is already held. It details also where a representation concerning the licensing objectives is made by a responsible authority about a proposed operating schedule and is relevant, the licensing authority's discretion will be engaged. It will also be engaged if another person makes a relevant representation to the licensing authority, which is not what's called frivolous or vexatious. Relevant representations can be made in opposition to or in support of an application and can be made by any individual, body or business that has grounds to so. And again, I have outlined for the benefit of the panel the guidance under section 182 in relation to what makes a representation relevant. In order to provide licensable activities that have been applied for, they must be conducted under the authority of a premises license. The final decision made by the committee in this matter is subject to an appeal in the Magistrates' Court by any of the parties to the proceedings. And what I will do now for the benefit of the panel is just briefly take you through the background papers to explain what we have there. So Appendix 1 relates to the application form submitted by the applicants, and it also has the plan of the premises. Appendix 2 is a area plan of the premises, which is shown in the middle of the plan just to the left of the premises marked the hutch. We also have at Appendix 3 some further submissions made by the applicants following their notification of the representations that have been made by the licensing authority and the environmental health team. And you'll see that they go towards explaining their side or their account of what happened within those representations. I then, for the benefit of the panel, in case they haven't been to the premises, have provided some photographs to give some context to the actual pub. Appendix 5 details the representations made by the licensing authority. And we have, as I said, Mr. Bateman, the team leader, who is present to expand on those representations. This is a peculiar time where an application has received representations from the licensing authority. So therefore, my role in this is an administrative role, and any questions with regard to the licensing authority representation should be directed towards Mr. Bateman rather than myself. We then have Appendix 6, the representations by the environmental protection team. And as I say, Mr. Draycott is here to expand on those. Appendix 7 we have the representations made by Mr. Lloyd. You'll see that there's a number of documents in there, which include solicitors' letters and screenshots of various social media posts. And again, Mr. Lloyd will be able to expand further on that. From Appendix 8 to Appendix 15, we have the representations in support of the application. These have been copied in full. The panel will see that in some cases there have been the initial emails to myself did not cover matters which are considered relevant. You'll be able to see my reply to the person making a representation, which was actually responded to all 75 people who made representations. And then following on, you will find their response, which actually clarifies their representations, which are actually relevant under the licensing objectives. Finally, at Appendix 16, there is the schedule of proposed conditions, which include the conditions which have been agreed with the police and other offered conditions from the applicants. Unless I can help the panel any further with regard to the pack, that's the submission from myself.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Bryan. Of course, the panel have read everything very carefully that you've sent through. Thank you for your very comprehensive help in setting out the most important things this morning, and all of the pertinent things. What I propose to do is to give Mr. Early and Ms. Casey the opportunity to outline their application. If they could do that in the light of the most important things which Mr. Bryant and indeed Ms. Corral have said to us: the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, the prevention of public nuisance, and the protection of children. This will form the thrust of our decision making this morning. That's the most important thing to us. Other things which are outlined in all the information that's come through, and there was quite a lot, we shall observe, but they are the most important things. I can't stress that enough. What I propose to do is to give Mr. Early the chance to speak first and set out his application. Ms. Casey will then be able to do exactly the same. We will come back for you to do a summation at the end of all the other application, of all the other things that that are put forward from all the other speakers. We will ask some questions. Councillor Henwood, Councillor Brown may well ask you some questions about the things that you speak of first of all. Then, having gone through, as I say, all of the other people that will be speaking this morning, we will come back to you for any summation which must be relevant to the objectives as set out by Mr. Bryan: the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, the prevention of public nuisance, and the protection of children from harm, which is the pertinent matter for this application. So first, can Mr. Early unmute himself and speak in favour of his application?
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning. Can you turn that your one off? Is that, can you hear me? Okay.
There is a bit of an echo, Mr. Early. We want to be fair and make sure that you can hear, that you can speak properly.
I can't hear you. All right. Can you hear? You have. Okay. I can be heard. Sorry. Okay. My name's Tim Early. I've been hospitality for 35 years, working in exclusive establishments across the UK and overseas. I've been predominantly a chef for sort of 18 of those years. And then the following sort of 13 years, I've been a licensee. I had I've had a pub in East Sussex for 6 years, which I run with also doing events on large scales. The experience of doing the medieval festival, where I was catering for up to 5,000 people over a weekend. I was solely in charge of the food, so public safety was very important with such a large number. Over the years, it's been the public are I've dealt with drunk people, people that get aggressive when they've been either intoxicated. I mean, it's a melting pot. Public houses for sure. So over the years, we've done lots of different courses. I've read the representation from people and found it quite soul destroying in the fact that that's the impression that I give. I must admit I am hot-headed. I get frustrated with sometimes that people are not seeing what we are trying to portray. We're predominantly a restaurant. We're not a late night venue as whether there's people drinking, finishing their meal. So we've done children's parties in the afternoons to make money. Sorry, I'm quite nervous here at the moment. I do apologise. So no, I do take my job incredibly serious, and I've done my utmost to uphold the four main objectives in where I've with the bans that we have done in the past, and when the authorities have said that we haven't governed it, again, I find that quite hard to believe. Where the only time I have got frustrated is when I've wanted to know where direction of people, where their houses are, so I can put the music in the right direction. I've worked closely with the band members. I've not broken any rules over the COVID experience. It was a very trying time for hospitality. We adapted, we changed, we went with the law. We had everything in place that we possibly could. We had an indoor, we had an outdoor. We tried to survive with keeping the public safe. We had an event in the summer. I think the authorities were alerted, but I think a lot of pubs were alerted. People were, the public was scared, and I would say that all our clientele seemed or were in a safe environment. We couldn't have done any more than we actually did. I believe I did talk to Mr. Byron after I called him on a regular basis to keep in touch with the authorities, worrying that something would go wrong. I rang him. He said there was a problem. So we talked about what the tables were, and we also had visits from the local police. They've come round on a spot check, I think, with one of the licensing team. They've come in and we've shown what we've got here and we've offered, and everyone seemed very happy with what we were doing. Miss Casey's been on extra courses. We've complied with what we've learned from any mistake that we've made. We've adapted and changed. Where we had the representation of the allergen in the egg. Now allergens have come across us. The law's changed so much. We've just had a new law come in the 1st of October. We are, it's changing all the time. So we do adapt, we do change. So after that experience, we found that it was a human error of communication between staff at the front, staff at the back. So more documentation has been in place, which we have got evidence of things in place where we now, so anyone coming through the door that has an allergen is given a talk, we talk to them. If it's a severe nut allergy, I will go out personally and talk to the customer and implying out the dangers that, we can't be 100% secure on this, but, because we do have it's a very small kitchen. So I feel like that incident was very unfortunate, and maybe it's great that it came across, and financially it was a kick in the teeth, but our systems are second to none of what we achieve in public safety. So, I find that that no one's come in and sort of looked what we're doing. I've worked very closely with the EHO, with Clara. We've improved standards. I've done nothing to deceive, or I'm not trying to pull the wool over us, but we're all learning as laws change. Crime and disorder. I've had to eradicate, a known a paedophile, as they're in the area. I've had to get them out of the pub because not in a physical way, but in a way that I can deal with somebody that's politely removing people from an establishment, especially when people are drunk and in a big group of people. I think I've got the ability to talk people down. I'm very good at communicating with people. I find the whole industry, it's a job that I've loved for years. I've been in this industry, I said 35 years. I've done huge events. I'm the DPS for the Village Fete, the show that we did, and there was 500-600 people at this event. If the village didn't have the faith and the ability that I can control that, they wouldn't have asked me to be involved in that sort of situation. I am hot-headed. I can snap, and I'm probably over the times that I have been sarcastic towards the environmental health team. And I apologise. I want my opportunity to apologise for all that. But noise complaints have gone up over the last. I think it was 66% noise complaints since we've come out of COVID. And the bands that we did in the afternoons. We did between 12 and 3 in the afternoon on a Saturday, not late at night. We're closing the doors early. We realised that the village went quiet at 8 o'clock at night. So we've adapted our doing something, and also we had to be outside in a safe environment. We changed half of our pub into a shop just to make ends meet and to supply a service to the village. We only had room for 20 people in a safe environment inside. So yeah, hindsight, great. We used everything possible to what the direction was, the cloud coverage. We did take our job very seriously. I took decibel readings. The band members took decibel readings. I think Mid Sussex Council were present at 2 of those events. I wish they'd come forward at the time and said, "Look, hang on a minute. This is too noisy, or it's too." I've asked my customers around, and it was, I suppose, people were quite joyful coming out of COVID, but nothing. We didn't do. I mean, I felt upset that that the letter's been written that it says during lockdown. Well, we didn't do anything during lockdown. It was when we came out of lockdown. The wording is very, very different. I'm sorry, I'm rabbiting on. I do apologise. I feel that any question the board like to ask me on public safety, on the prevention of crime. I believe that when I arrived at the pub 7 years ago, me and Mr. Lloyd were friends, and I helped him set this up back in 2005 with the food. So it's really irrelevant of our bickering and our argument, the things he say, you say, we say. if Mr. Lloyd feels I'm unsafe to run a place, well, I beg to differ. I think that the places that I had, the public safety I had when I got here, there was the gas tank was hot wired. I had to change that and make that legal. Make all the things possibly, and it's a minefield running a pub. Customers, staff, and it's been tricky times for the last 2 years. But I can't when look at the places that have had lock-ins and people found in cellars and people totally flaunting the law. And I feel like I've been associated with that, and it's quite hurtful, especially when I do take the job seriously. I can't more than say anything more really than that we do utmost courses that the staff are sent on. Any staff that has flaunted these laws, they've gone. We've got the manager that over the egg incident, they're gone. The incidents can happen. We're not perfect. We're only human. But I feel that we put as much in place as possible as we can. If any questions would like to be asked of anything that's in that folder, I've quite openly asked them.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much. Can I just ask you, please don't be too nervous. We are about giving you a fair hearing about the future of the box and how it is to be run on those 4 main principles. But please don't be over nervous this morning. I would ask you to. You've said that you're a little hot-headed. Please don't be today. And I would ask you now.
No, I'm not.
That's absolutely fine. What I'm saying is that you're probably going to hear a lot of things from different angles. That is a legal requirement. We have to listen to everything, and everything that you've said will be taken into account. You're not to lose heart on that, if I might just say that. We will make a very fair representation based on those 4 main principles. So if you could just mute yourself now. No, sorry. What I'm going to ask is my colleagues on the council, if you'd like to indicate what you would like to. So, Councillor Henwood, you have a question.
Yes, please. Thank you very much, Mr. Early. I was pleased to hear of the steps you've taken regarding allergens in food, but there are other noises produced by a pub, such as disposal of glasses, bottles, waste. So I wondered what steps you've taken to ensure that hygiene and that waste is collected and the commercial bin collection occurs and the bottling up is not too disruptive for the neighbourhood. Thank you very much, Mr. Early.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you. So no bottles are emptied late at night. So all bottles are they're put in a bottle bin behind the bar. They are then emptied into a commercial bin. We use a biffer, which I get the glasses emptied once a week. I recycle the plastics, the paper, the food all goes into a separate bin. I must admit that during that very hot weather, the food goes in a separate. So all food and waste goes into one, all plastics and rubbish goes in another, and then all bottles go into another. But nothing is apart from the chefs putting out the bins late at night. But that would be a plastic bag, a bag going into the soft, so there'd be no noise late at night. All the bottles are emptied in the morning, between 10 and 12 every day. That would happen. And yes, I believe when we had that incredibly hot weather in the summer, I think everyone's bin stunk in that time. So that bin is when it's emptied on a Wednesday or a Thursday, I think Thursday, it is then jet washed out, and we start again. And we put chemicals in, into the stop the flies. But it was incredibly hot weather, so I must admit, I think everyone was putting their bins out from inside their kitchens that week, or those 2 weeks in the summer. But yeah, so yeah, I've got that's all in place.
Thank you. Councillor Smith, have you got any questions for Mr. Early?
Well, actually, thank you for calling me Councillor Smith, because you called me Brown earlier.
Oh, sorry, mate.
That's okay. I'm more worried about about the food allergens. You say that you just go out and speak to customers if they've got nut allergy. There's more to allergies than just nut. I wondered what steps you take to keep your customers safe.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks for that comment. So yeah, when I just said the nut allergy, that came to mind because it only happened recently, where somebody, the peanut one, that freaks me right out. It does worry, because we do keep our dry goods in all together. So what we do, so on the procedure of now that anyone that comes in, every staff, I think before we should, on the phone, they're asked, have you got any known allergens? It is put in the book on booking the table. If it's a walk-in, they are asked at point before they even sat down, is there any allergens that we need to be aware of? They're given a form with the 14 main ones and a space to put any other allergens or intolerances. And also we know that if it's a severe or not severe. So we're checking on anaphylactic and so that their boxes are ticked. At that point of call, so the communication between the front of house and the back of house, that piece of paper with the name of the customer, the table number, and the allergen and what they're eating is followed as it comes from the check, comes in from the kitchen. It comes in with their order, with what allergic reaction, what they've got or what they don't want in their dishes. It follows all the way through until the person leaves the establishment, and also they've signed it, ticked it, and yeah. And every day, every morning, every morning so the front of house will come into the kitchen. They will ask any new dishes that are going on the menu at the moment. So we've said we've got a new dish come on. So what allergens are in this? So that the front of house and back of house are communicating together, the communication's gone, and then it goes into a file, and it's there kept access, which everyone's got access to. Well, everyone in the kitchen, everyone front of house got access to. Like, oh, hang on a minute, ask a question. Can I have that if I'm a gluten intolerant? And they can go and check. If not, I'm 9 times out of 10 I'm here. The question can be asked. And if it's a really severe allergen, I mean, most people do carry a pen on them just in case, but I will go and talk to them, and we do anything at most to try and get that safe. I mean, we've learned our lesson on that. I think it was the fact that the back in the egg game was that the difference between a Dorset oyster and a Cornish oyster was a very, it was a little bit nitpicking. And also, we're not saying that we do. Our procedures of checking invoices, checking authenticity. I'm very, very up on, if it's local, we are local. If it's homemade, we make it. We make our own bread. We make our ice cream. I use local beef, and I use local sheep that's down the road. And I wouldn't ever want to just, that's why I think I got upset with the fact that my sort of, as a chef, I went, it was, anyway, sorry, I've rabbited on. I've answered your question.
Thank you, Mr. Early. One of the concerns that I had, going forward, there have been times when events with groups or whatever had overrun, and we need to know that if things, if there are events going forward, that they would be, the timings would be strictly adhered to. That is a very important consideration to do with the 4 issues that we're talking about. So would you like to comment on that, Mr. Early?
Yes, Chairman. I'd like to say that so the events, we're not going to do bans because it's caused too much headache. Now we're going to stop our bans. Any of those events that have taken on place, we do have CCTV and I offer, and I do live above the establishment. I have got teenage boys. You know, they're 18 to 20 to 24, and predominantly they live part-time with me and part-time with mum. So I have offered CCTV footage that you possibly, I can't now because 1 days, but yeah, we're not doing bans. So that's not going to happen. And also with the new restrictions that we've got, you know, with the police wanting extra cameras on the front, the back, and they've got access to these cameras. We had an old license. The old premises license was granted on a grandfather right. So you're right. We've changed as a society. Going forward, you know, that's going to be in place. So that will never happen, because it won't.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Early. Now, I'm going to ask you to mute yourself again now, please, because I'm going to allow Ms. Casey to make her representation. And then indeed we shall ask some questions there. I would ask Mr. Early that as the other representations are brought forward, that you maybe make some notes as to you know, how you would handle things better going forward, because what we're going to do is give you a chance to sum up after the other representation has been made. And I would remind you to keep the hot head under control, if I might, please. Thank you very much, Mr. Early. It's been nice hearing from you. We've heard your comments. Miss Casey.
Okay, yeah. Oh, Tim, can you turn your mic down, please? Thank you. I personally think Tim made a very good representation for us for our license application. So even though he did go on a little bit, but what I would like to say is points to further support our application would be, well, Tim's already said it really, all the allergen safety measures that we've put in place and courses that we've been on, and like the COVID-19 awareness measures and courses. We're very up on all of that and making sure we know the rules and regs of like everything, and learnt from the food safety with the egg. Like Tim said as well, we've also attached that we wouldn't do any amplified music outside that, and also added no amplified music inside as well. So, and we could still do acoustic inside. So we have a piano and we have a harpists come in. So that sort of thing we would carry on doing. Also, like Tim said, we've got different measures in place now, more advanced measures, I would say, like our incident accident book, and any incidents of criminal nature would be reported to the police immediately. Not that there has ever been any criminal activity here at all. What else can I say? Oh, our age verification. The challenge 25, all the signage is displayed here with the ID that's required, and only specific ID as well, like driving license, proof of age cards bearing the pass hologram, photographic ID cards, that sort of thing. Also, we've got a register in place as well of refusal of sales. So we also have that available for the police whenever they need. Staff training manuals, that's all been updated and improved, like including underage sales. All the training is like top notch. What else? I mean, Tim's already said everything. Oh, one thing I'd like to add. I'm trained in ISO 9001 which is implementation of procedures to have a smoother running of your business and putting various forms and whatnot in place to just run a smoother business. So I think that's quite handy to have. That's it really, because Tim said it all.
Thank you very much indeed. I'm going to ask Councillor Henwood and Councillor Smith if they have any questions. Councillor Henwood.
Yes, please. Thank you. Thank you very much, Miss Casey. I was interested when you mentioned you had attended several courses. So I'm wondering which course in particular have you found most beneficial and actually perhaps might prepare you for future?
Right.
Thank you.
I did add my certificate into the extra pack that I gave John Byron on the 8th of October, and like copies of all my certificates. The one that I found more beneficial was the allergen awareness. I am quite knowledgeable on it anyway, because I have a load of allergies myself, including peanuts and various other ones. But yeah, I thought that was more beneficial. Obviously the COVID-19 awareness and the hygiene, that really helped, obviously. Yes, that's it.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Smith, any questions?
Yes, please, Chairman. I'd like to just ask Miss Casey. She mentions about her courses, but what about the courses of the other staff? I presume you have other staff. Do they go on extra training courses for allergens or, just general update? Because we've just come out of, the reason why I ask is we've just come out of COVID lockdowns, and a lot of premises have changed, and people do change, after this lockdown. So sometimes it's best to go back, and do another training course, just to familiarise people. I wondered if you've done that.
Yes, definitely. All our key star members go through the training. Unfortunately, we haven't got hardly any staff at the minute, because being closed, quite a lot of our staff have left for different employment. So I'm a little bit worried if and when we do open again. So, but yes, the answer is yes to that. All key staff members go through allergen awareness training.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Ms. Casey. I think, as you say, it's been fairly comprehensive from you and Mr. Early. I'm going to ask you to mute yourself now. We are going to hear from where is he? Mr. Bateman first. As I would reiterate that there are possibly things that Mr. Bateman and Mr. Drake will be bringing to our attention that you will get the chance to come back on later on, Ms. Casey and Mr. Early. So, and also when Mr. Lloyd's spoken as well. So do make some notes, and we'll let Mr. Bateman speak first, and then Mr. Draycott, then Mr. Lloyd. But do make some notes. There may well be things that you'd like to summarise or bring back to the committee at the end of that. Thank you very much indeed. Mr. Bateman.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Before I continue, brilliant. Yeah, so I think a number of these things have been touched on already in this hearing, but I'll just give a summary of where we stand as a responsible authority. So the licensing authority has objected to this application for a premises license at the Fox. And this is having considered the application and its ability to uphold the licensing objectives. As detailed in our representation, which is contained within Appendix 5, and I won't go through each point because we might be here a little while, but the licensing authority has repeatedly intervened in the carrying on of licensing activity at this establishment. In the past 5 years, we've had to liaise frequently with the previous DPS at the time, Mr. Early, and the current premises licence holder, Mr. Lloyd. We've had calls to liaise with the police, colleagues in environmental protection and West Sussex County Council Trading Standards,
as well as members of the public concerning the failure to comply with legal requirements at this establishment. Despite many verbal discussions providing advice and support to Mr. Early on how he must act to comply with the licensing objectives, we have still had to provide written warnings due to the failure to comply with licensing regulations. These go as far back as July 2017, again in January 2020, and most recently in May 2021. These documents are also provided in Appendix 5 of the report. In November 2018, Mr. Early admitted to allowing to have a birthday party continue well beyond his licensed hours. And in May 2021, Mr. Early admitted to holding a music event without the required temporary event notice. So when reviewing the history of this establishment, what occurs is a picture of repeated contraventions despite being given ample opportunities to comply. This pattern of non-compliance is, I believe, succinctly captured by West Sussex County Council Cabinet Member for the Environment when successfully prosecuting Mr. Early for repeated food safety charges, where she stated, despite being given a chance to put matters right at an early stage, he did not do so. Officers of the licensing team, the food safety team, the environmental protection team, West Sussex County Council Trade and Standards, and our Environmental Health Administration team have reported to me at various points that Mr. Early has at times been difficult to engage with and at points verbally aggressive. The guidance issued under Section 182 of the Licensing Act requires that we consider good communication between licence holders and local authorities when determining whether we are confident they will uphold the licensing objective of public safety. In January 2021, Mr. Lloyd, as premises licence holder, reported to the licensing authority that he had no confidence in Mr. Early to uphold the licensing objectives and removed him as DPS. In August 2021, Mr. Early applied to the licensing authority to transfer the premises licence from Mr. Lloyd to himself. This was refused, having ascertained that he had not obtained the necessary consent of Mr. Lloyd, and Mr. Lloyd reported that he had no knowledge of this application being made. Of course, the application we are concerned with today, has been pointed out, is for an additional premises licence at the Fox, and the licensing authority is not considering the existing premises licence, which remains in place for Mr. Lloyd, and Mr. Lloyd can appoint a suitable DPS at any time to recommence licensing activity at the establishment. The licensing authority therefore considers the application for Mr. Early and Miss Casey for an additional premises licence at the establishment, with the evidence of non-compliance spanning several years, which is relevant to the applicants. Consequently, on the balance of probability, which is the threshold that I must consider here, the licensing authority cannot be confident that the applicants will uphold the licensing objectives, and it is therefore my responsibility to object to this application today. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bateman. Can I ask committee members, have you got any questions, Mr. Bateman? No. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Bateman. Can I then move on to Mr. Draycott, please, from the Environment?
Yes, can you hear me okay, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, very well.
Thank you. So the council wants to support local businesses, and as the environmental protection team, we play a part in that. Our aim is to work with businesses to ensure that the law is upheld and nuisances are prevented so that local residents are not unreasonably affected by issues such as noise and odours and the like. And this has been our approach with the applicants over recent years. But unfortunately, despite all our efforts to work with the applicants, we have time and time again received complaints, particularly about noise, due to activities at the Fox. And this is the reason for our representation, that we don't have the confidence that the applicants will uphold the licensing objective of the prevention of public nuisance. This isn't a snap decision, and you'll see from my representation that I've given some statistics of recent noise complaint numbers. We've received 8 over the last 2 years, but it might be helpful if I expand a bit and explain the lengths that we've gone to make it clear what is expected of a premises license holder to meet the licensing objective of preventing public nuisance. So I'll outline a little bit of the story, if I may, Chairman.
You may.
In November 2018, we received complaints of noise from music and shouting, and this was at 1 o'clock in the morning. And at that time, we advised the applicant that future temporary event notices may be refused if disturbances into the late evening and nighttime continued. We then received further complaints of noise from outside the pub going on past midnight, affecting local residents in July 2019 and November 2019. More noise complaints were received in December 2019 from loud music at the pub on a Sunday going on beyond their licensing hours, which Mr. Bateman has already alluded to. So on account of these complaints of noise, when a temporary event notice for an event on Christmas Eve, which was proposed to go through to 1 o'clock in the morning, came through, we refused that. And at the same time, we did allow a New Year's Eve party, which was proposed to go through till 2 o'clock, and we accepted that. And on these two events, we received complaints on the Christmas Eve of shouting, swearing, and arguing outside the pub at midnight. And the event on New Year's Eve was clearly audible in residence properties at 3:20 in the morning, which was an hour and 20 minutes after the event was supposed to have finished. So a meeting was held to discuss these breaches of the licensing hours in December 2020. And again, Mr. Bateman's already made note of that. And it was made clear at that meeting that noise from music and customers had to be managed better. And as we all know, after that lockdown happened and things, the whole picture changed for a time. But then in May of 2021, we received further complaints of noise from music being played outside the pub. And we hadn't received a temporary event notice for that. And so we were concerned that there was some unregulated events taking place. Subsequently, there were 3 temporary event notices applied for. And at the time, Ms. Casey was written to, advising that they should monitor noise levels and adjust volumes to prevent public nuisance. And they were advised at that time that the Environmental Protection Team officers would be monitoring those events. So on the first of those events, on the 26th of June, we had an officer go out to do the monitoring, and loud music was evidence outside houses in the area up to 65 meters away. And there was an arrangement where the singer and those playing instruments had their backs to the pub and they were facing the housing. We did receive complaints about that. We had 2 complaints about that. And so we contacted the Fox to advise regarding noise mitigation measures for the 2 further events coming up. So the first of those, the second of the events, there was a Grease tribute band playing. And again, we monitored that event for noise. And we did witness loud music again outside homes in the area, despite the band being repositioned so that they had their backs to the houses. There was still loud music and we still received complaints. So I spoke with Mr. Early about the event, who advised that the final event would be held inside the pub. So the third event took place, and this was the Whiskey Beats, where there was electric guitars, drums, and obviously singers. And again, we in the Environmental Protection Team, we monitored the event, and again, we witnessed loud music being played outside in the car park, with again, the orientation of the band had shifted again, and it was facing the housing. which obviously this conflicted with Mr. Early's previous advice to us about music being undertaken inside. So noise from that particular event was heard at houses in the village and as far away as the Cost Cutters, which I think is about 350 meters away. So whatever the promises have been made in the past, our experience, it's clear that the applicant is either unwilling or unable to keep to the agreed arrangements not to cause noise nuisance in the locality. And I've no confidence that they will change their attitude towards the local residents' peaceful enjoyment of their homes, and no confidence that public nuisance will not reoccur. And that's really the reason for our representation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Draco. Have my committee got any questions? Councillor Henwood.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that explanation. We have already mentioned communication is a very important part of our consideration. How would you explain, describe communications between the Environmental Protection Team and Mr. Early and Ms. Casey? Thank you.
Thank you. I think you'll see from the representation that I made in written form in the Appendix 5 that when we've approached Mr. Early, it's been quite a prickly engagement, should we say. There's been times, unfortunately, when I've had to state that Mr. Early shall deal with me because I'm having to protect my staff from abuse, in effect, and that's what has happened. And so I'd say that the communication hasn't been smooth, and it has been somewhat disturbing and concerning.
Thank you, Mr. Draco. Councillor Smith, would you like to ask any questions?
Oh, no, thank you, Chairman. I don't have any questions.
I think the one question that I would like to ask is, Mr. Early has said that in future there will be no music events taking place. He doesn't intend to. Would that make a big difference, in your opinion, Mr. Draco, to the environmental issues for the fox?
Well, it would certainly help with the disturbance to local residents if we had the confidence that no music would actually be played. I think that's part of my representation, is that can we be confident, given the history, given our experience in the past, that what is being told to us at this point will actually result? Will that actually be the outcome? And that's my concern.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Draco. Can I ask you to mute yourself now, please? And I'm going to ask Mr. Lloyd to make his representation. Can I please ask you, Mr. Lloyd, to keep your representation relevant to the four main issues, which is the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety issues, the prevention of public nuisance, and the protection of children from harm. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Lloyd.
Yeah. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good morning. I'm the freeholder of the pub, as you're aware, and the premises licence holder. I'm a former police inspector and metropolitan police officer. From 1995 onwards, I've managed to run pubs in London, and leasehold pubs in West London. And in 2004, I bought the Fox. I'd like to point out, in all the time I was managing pubs, I don't ever recall needing the assistance of police, and police never turned up to any pub that I was managing. I've always followed the advice of the licences officers, Paul Thornton and John Bryan, in every decision I've made in dealing with Mr. Early in the past 6 or 7 years. My solicitors also advised me, and all my reactions with all my dealings with Tim, as I said, are only related to licensing matters as such. I resigned as DPS on the 16th of August after discussions with John Bryant. When I resigned on the 16th of August after talking to John Bryant when I didn't have confidence in Tim to be the continuing DPS. The legal position was explained to him in a solicitor's letter dated the 18th of August, which is in the bundle. Despite the legal position being explained to both Mr. Early and Miss Claire Casey by my solicitors and my reasons for resigning as DPS, they decided instead to post a Facebook post in the West Hoathly and Forest Row Facebook post. In that post, they lied about my intentions, stating I wish to convert the Fox into flats or houses. I lied about the Fox losing its alcohol license and further the reasons for its closing. This has created a fair degree of public nuisance for me. By making these full statements, they obviously do not grasp the reasons for my resigning and seem to be unaware of the provisions of the Licensing Act 2003 as to why I actually did resign as DPS. As a result of these false claims, I've received a number of Facebook posts which are abusive, accusing me of profiteering and deliberately trying to close the pub down, which is completely false. I noticed that they've had a GoFundMe page that Miss Casey has posted, and the headline is, like so many pubs in the hospitality industry, the Fox is facing potential closure. Again, this is more disinformation and creation of public nuisance, even after they've read my solicitor's letter dated the 18th of August. In addition, the 76 emails you referred to, I think John Bryant will clarify that a vast majority of those were sent on the assumption that Fox was closing. The Fox hasn't lost its license to sell alcohol and is not closing, but they just banged on about this as if to create an image that I'm the one responsible for shutting the pub down, which is not actually the case. For me, this is not about noise. Since 2016, when Mr. Early was arrested for breach of a restraining order on his partner, Claire Casey, there's been fights and disturbances in that pub between the pair. In 2017, Mr. Early asked me to rent my house next door to the pub because of the continuing problems that he was finding living on the premises with Claire Casey. So I actually reluctantly agreed to let that happen in order to preserve the status of the premises license, because everything I've done in the past 6 years has been to preserve the state of the premises license. I realized that two of them couldn't get on living above the pub. And the major reason for that is because they drink too much. Miss Early's use of cannabis, her use of alcohol.
Can I ask you to keep your comments a little bit more relevant, please? Because
okay, sorry. Okay, well, what I'm trying to say is here, in terms of the Licensing Act 2003 and the objectives, I think if you're going to have people responsible for managing a pub and running a pub, you expect them to behave in a fit and proper way. And if there's police are called to the premises for whatever reason, or there's continued disturbances at the pub, I've discovered in the past that sometimes it's down to the way that people are behaving, and that affects how they implement the four objectives of the Licensing Act 2003. I'm not criticising them as personal individuals. I'm saying in relation to the way they manage the pub and the way the pub is led is affected by how people live their lives. And I've seen this as a police officer in many years. I'll give you one example of the abuse I've received as well from Mr. Early. In 2020, when lockdown started, I was threatened by him by text messages, where he said that people could get hurt, people could have a problem, people could be, he called me a fucking cock. When somebody's feeling on the edge, you do something like this, knowing what the country is like. And I think that if you're going to be holding a premises license, or you're going to be a designated premises supervisor, it's not suitable to be abusing and threatening people in the way that Adam Draycott has commented to you already from the council. I think the major reason for my objection, therefore, is not so much the noise that takes place, which has been caused by, I think, late night drinking and drinking after hours, but are they really fit and proper people to hold a license, to manage a license, and to achieve the four objectives of the Licensing Act 2003. That's primarily why I objected to them being premises license holders. It's nothing personal. It's all It's nothing personal. As the bundle stated, you know, I've known Tim Early since 2004. He's a very accomplished chef, but I'm not sure if they're the right people that should be premises license holders. Let me give you an example. Councillor Henwood asked Tim about the bins and the refuse collection. In terms of public nuisance, living next door to the pub, I've had a run-in with Tim Early about the collection of his bins. He has the bin emptied once a week. It's full of maggots. When it's hot, it smells. When I asked him to, you know, deal with the problem of rats and put certain refuse into certain bins, which you would think he would, you know, help out with, he refused to do it, and we had a violent confrontation on the car park. I think as Mr. Bateman and Mr. Draycott says, when you try and engage with Tim in conversation to achieve an objective, to hit the licensing objectives, actually what you get is a lot of obstinacy and refusal to comply. I had a lot of discussions with Paul Thornton over various issues, and he said you can sit Tim Early down and Claire Casey down and speak to them, and then they'll nod in agreement and say, oh yeah, we won't do that again. Oh yeah, no, we won't do that again. And then 2 weeks later, they go and do it again. I know on New Year's Eve, when he had a license till 2 o'clock, he did sell alcohol till 3:30 in the morning because he told me he did. And I said to him, why are you doing that? And he said, well, it's New Year's Eve. What's the problem? That's his attitude. When I was going on earlier about the drinking and the use of cannabis and whatever, you know, I'm probably taking that from a perspective of an ex-police officer. And are these people the right and fit and proper people to be holding a license? Actually, I don't think they are. And that's why I've objected to them being premises license holder.
Thank you, Mr. Lloyd.
I've got one other thing to say. I mean, also as designated premises supervisor, you know, it's fairly obvious to me that when I went into the pub on August the 16th and was barred by Claire Casey from entering the pub, it appeared to me that she didn't actually understand the Licensing Act 2003 and its provisions. She wasn't aware that the premises license holder, designated premises supervisor, needs access to the pub at all times. My solicitor actually had to write to tell her what the law was. You know, I mean, that's the reason for my objections, and I thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Mr. Lloyd. Yeah, I think if I can just at this point remind everyone that the licensing objectives that we are looking at today are the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, the prevention of public nuisance, and the protection of children from harm. They are the main points that we are looking at today and going forward with the Fox. Okay, so if we can please keep some of the peripheral comments, if I may, to a minimum and stick with those main objectives. My committee, have you got any questions of Mr. Lloyd? No. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Lloyd. I do believe that Miss Lewis would like to speak. Is that correct?
Sorry, could I just say one more point?
Very well.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I brought personality into it. It's been quite stressful living next door to the pub for the last year. And I apologise to the committee if I got or raised objections of a personal nature. It wasn't my intention. I suppose I've been slightly wound up by the whole affair over the last year. And I did try and stick to what the committee meeting is about. And I suppose I let my emotions get slightly ahead of me there. So I apologise. What I was trying to say was, you can tell Tim till the cows come home what the objectives of the Licensing Act are 2003, and he will nod in agreement. And then the next time he will just do something completely different. Thank you.
I understand, Mr. Lloyd.
Thank you.
I understand. If you can mute yourself now, please. Miss Lewis, did you want to speak?
Hello, and thank you for having me here. I'm talking to you as a customer and as a neighbour to the Fox, and I don't want to take into account any of the tit for tat that we're hearing about. So it's purely on the grounds of being a customer and neighbour. I live very close to the pub. We're just above it almost. So you could say we overlook it. And I have 2 children and I live in a community that overlooks the pub. We have never, I mean, we go, to be fair, we're not very regular customers, but because we pass it every day, we see Tim, we see Claire regularly, we talk to them, we've used the shop, we go to the pub to eat occasionally, and friends of ours have played at the pub as well. Somebody mentioned the Whiskey Beats. I think a friend of ours who lives in Sharpthorne played at that. And we have never experienced any crime or disorder. I see people in the evenings there having a good time. Noise levels are bearable because it's been outside mostly because of COVID. It's never been an issue for us. Public safety, I don't see any issues there when I pass, when I visit, etc. Public nuisance always has been advertised that they're going to have a party or an event, and I believe, in my experience, that's always been maintained. I might not have been around at the New Year's that went on till super late, but in my experience, there hasn't been a huge issue, And prevention of harm to children and young persons. I know that the young people from our community, so I'm talking 18 plus young adults, have worked for Tim and Claire and have worked in their kitchens, and then afterwards have had a drink there, and I've never heard of any issue to do with that. So just as a neighbour and a customer, that's my experience. Thank you.
That's very helpful. Thank you, Ms. Lewis. My committee, do you have any questions of Ms. Lewis? No. Councillor Smith.
Just one question, really. You say you've been notified when events have happened in the past. How were you notified? Was it on Facebook? Was it a letter through your door?
They always have a placard up outside the pub, so you can see it from when you're driving up from Sharpthorne, and you can see it when you're driving down from where we live. So it always gives the dates and times.
So if you were ill and you was housebound, for example, you wouldn't actually know.
Maybe if you use Facebook. I don't use Facebook, so I don't know if they advertise. There's the West Hoathly and Sharpthorne Facebook page, which I'm sure they probably advertise on, but I don't use it, so I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from my committee? No. Thank you very much indeed, Ms. Lewis. And I'm going to pause there just for a second, just to remind everybody of what we're talking about going forward. I know I've kept on banging on about this, but it is the most important thing. We're looking to the future. The past, of course, can actually colour the future, but we are looking to the future of this premises licence application in the light of the licensing objectives, which are, most importantly, the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, the prevention of public nuisance, and the protection of children from harm, including, of course, minors that might try to get drinks in the bar. Now, I'm going to ask Mr. Early if he would like to come back on in summation of any of the statements that have been made this morning. Your comments, Mr. Early.
I'm unmuted.
You're fine now.
Am I? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, no, I'm trying to make all the points that everyone's made. I'd like to say that, you know, for me and Paul falling out, many have been friends since 2004. You know, the things, I'm not going to go into detail. I'm not going to say anything. You know, it's tit for tat. It's, you know, a lot of things there said are untrue. Find offensive. There's a lot of things that both of us have probably said to each other that shouldn't be repeated in a public place. But going forward, Mr. Chairman, some of the dates that Mr. Draycott has pointed out, that they're on a Sunday or days. I mean, I do remember, I think the 12th of November 2018, I just checked, in fact, is a Monday that we shut on. So there is a lot of houses in the area, and I'm sure that we do get blamed for a lot of things that happen. You know, all I can say is that it reads awful. It does read awful. It sounds like I don't give a two hoots to what the law says, but I do. You know, the temporary events notice on the 27th of May, you know, it wasn't done to deceive. The laws were changing. We were given the ability to use our outside car parks and spaces to space customers out. So I assumed, you know, this is totally assumed, that the fact is that anything that we did inside was allowed to be done outside. You know, as we were allowed to have tables and chairs in car park areas, because we couldn't go inside at the time. So I didn't want to do that to avoid council. You know, I took it totally on board. I did ring John Byron the next day, because he rang me to say, did you know you haven't got a temporary events notice in that part? I thought, well, it is, because the government said that we could use, you know, we were putting spaces onto pavements in the streets. So that was a total oversight. I wasn't, and I said we did it between 12 and 3 in the afternoon on a Saturday, knowing that there's complaints from line out bands that we have had here in the past. I assumed that a 12 till 3 gig on a Saturday afternoon would have been acceptable. It was for charity. So we did put temporary events notice in, alerting the council that we were doing, and we moved the bands around different areas. I checked the decibel. I took decibel readings, and if the council were there, why didn't they help us? Don't, you know? I feel obliged. It was like that. That's a little bit telling me not to do something, but giving me the license to do it, but then telling me off when I've already done it. So if they were here, I wish they. I mean, also Mr. Lloyd was present at those gigs, enjoying the facility. I asked him, what do you think? Majority of the times it was great to see the pub busy. It was great to see the pub, you know, turning over some money, which we all needed to do after closure of 7 months. You know, I wasn't, you know, Mr. Draycott, I wasn't trying to, and I'm sorry if I was rude to your staff, that you feel that you can't be approachable, but I'm very approachable. I find it offensive that I've been told that I'm not approachable. In justness, sometimes I get frustrated with, you know, I was asking your colleague where is the complaint coming from, so I can move the band in the right direction. If I've got no guidance, how am I supposed to more than, if there was somebody here doing that, pop in and say, by the way, the decibel reading is too high, and then we would have turned it down more. We did turn it down. We turned it down. We moved direction, cloud coverage. We took that into account. We had to go outside. I couldn't have fit more than 20 people inside. Trying to keep the social distancing going. So those last noise events, well, I mean, you know, they were, hindsight is a great thing. Maybe, you know, we shouldn't have done it. But as Poppy says, thank you very much, that, you know, she lives opposite, within sort of, I mean, we can hear, when we can hear things from each other's gardens. So, you know, I do take it on board that, you know, if that one, other people find it offensive, they're always going to be, you're going to get noise complaints. I don't want noise complaints, but it is a pub, and, you know, we try and keep our locals happy. We try and keep them noisy. We've got signage everywhere. You know, I'm constantly, I think the Christmas Eve one was actually timed earlier than 12, you know, he's saying at 12 o'clock, but it was, you know, everyone's coming after midnight mass. People come from the club, which is below me. They'll stop off to see some of their friends. It's not necessarily coming from me. Also, I'm not trying to make excuses, but there is other places in the area that people do congregate. And there's some of the dates that doesn't coincide with any events that we had. Looking on it, there was a Monday, a Sunday. I mean, I'm pretty much knackered by 10 o'clock on a Sunday after a long week. So I don't want to stay up till 12 o'clock. I really don't. I'd rather, I've enjoyed the COVID bit where we've shut the doors at 8 o'clock when we were doing takeaways. I'm too old for that. And if, I'm sorry that maybe there has been a ban on, but in 13 years as a landlord or as a licensee, I feel like I've carried out my objectives to the law. And, I'm trying to, the temporary events notice was honestly, I didn't know that we needed to get one for that. So that's why we did put future events in. I don't know. I don't know what else to say. That those, the way that Mr. has read it is the fact that I don't give two hoots, but I do. This is, Kate Cohen, sorry, this is my livelihood. This is my, we've got as far as we have now, let alone, going any further. And I don't know what I will do if I can't be in hospitality anymore. I take everyone's comment on board. I take Mr. Lloyd's comments on board. We should get on better for sure. It's a shame that a relationship was broken down. All I want to do is just make a living. But if you don't feel you're confident enough that I'm able to do that, help me here. Help me get this. Get it right. We're not perfect. I have got a flat above. I live above, and I said I've got teenage boys. Sorry to rabbit on. Is there any questions anyone wants to ask?
Really, can I just say, please, if I might?
I can't hear you.
Can you not hear me?
Oh, I can hear you now. Yes, sorry.
I would just say that the running of a public house is something that I wouldn't want to take on, but the law is very clear. The requirements of that, the prevention of crime, disorder, public safety, the prevention of public nuisance, the practice of children from prevention, protection of children are very clear, and all of those need to be met. I'm going to ask Mr. Bryant, he's got his hand up, I'm going to ask him to come back on the points that you've raised. Thank you.
Yeah, Chairman, panel, thank you for that. It's not particularly on the points which have been raised by the applicant. It's just to advise the panel. There was some mention a short time ago about the offer not to play music during the day at the premises. I just need to point out to the panel that live or recorded music played between 8 AM and 2300 hours on a premises which has a premises license to sell alcohol, and the premises is open for the sale of alcohol, that's not regarded as a regulated activity, regulated entertainment. So any premises doesn't have to have that on their license to be able to have live or recorded music in their premises during those times. I just wanted to clarify to the panel that that's the situation.
That's extremely helpful. Thank you, Mr. Byrne. My committee, have you got any questions pertaining to what Mr. Early's just said? No? Councillor Smith.
I would like to ask a question, but something you raised earlier. It's really more a point of how do they control poor behaviour? You mentioned before there was a log, but how do you control if people are hanging about, loud, whatever? What are your processes?
Mr. Early, would you like to reply to that?
Unmute. I'm all right now. Okay, I think I've got a good relationship with the youngsters and the scallywags, I should say, that in the village. The big problem I had with COVID at the beginning, the first lockdown, is that they were all looking for somewhere to congregate, and so they were buying their takeaway burger, and then trying to flaunt it by sitting opposite the pub. Sitting in their trailers or in their cars and putting the music on in their. So, I'm very polite. I'm very good at controlling this lot that, they've got a huge amount of respect for me. So I think that's, I portray that I don't put up with that. So, a quiet word. When there is I've only had to bar 2 people in my career. There was somebody dropped a wallet on the floor, thought it was being stolen. There was somebody's then hit that person, accused of stealing. I've separated in a very professional manner where we had an event. We've moved, I can move one out the back door. I have then sat that person down. We've gone through, you're not welcome here, for at least minimum 6 months. And if they try to get back in, they're refused. I've had to, as I said, I've had to deal with, some people have got mental health issues. That I had an incident a few years ago where they've come in and if people are aggressive, if you're dealing with aggressive people, it's quite hard. You've got to talk them down. You've got to be able to get to communicate with them in not an authoritative way. As the fact is that if people, in my experience, if you say no to somebody immediately, then they'll get aggressive. But if I can control a crowd. I can control. I think I've got the respect of my clientele. With dealing with that. So so the people are procedurally, they are barred. They know not to come in. They are moved swiftly out of the establishment, and not in this pub, but in previous pubs where I think I was in Lewes, and I'd just done my personal license, and it was football was on in the Lewes town, and there was a lot of I was exec chef for Shelley's Hotel in Lewes, and we managed to deal with a load of drunk footballers by coaching them out and treating them, not being aggressive. I don't get aggressive with people like that. Sorry. There we are. Hope that's answered the question.
Thank you, Mr. Early. Before I let Miss Casey come in, making quite a lot. That's great, thank you. Mr. Lloyd, have you something that is pertinent to what Mr. Early has said that'll further contribute to not inflame the situation?
Yeah, no, I apologise for my comments earlier on. I've no personal animosity towards Tim at all. I've known him since 2004. He's a fantastic chef. Relating to the music played on the premises when I was present in the summer, there was noise complaints, which I was told of at the time, and I did pass that on. Tim's reaction was, well, we'll get a petition up so we can keep having the music played. I don't see what the problem is. I mean, Tim's a very, very nice guy. He's a very professional chef. But when he's asked to do certain things to comply with the Licensing Act 2003, the regulations thereof, he sometimes pushes back to the point of aggression rather than taking on board what he's being asked to do. And I think when I was talking to you earlier, that was the major problem I've had with Tim in the past 5 years. You ask him to do certain things to keep the Licensing Act 2003 compliance, and he pushes back. And that's the same comment that Mr. Draycott and Mr. Bateman have said. So what he's asking you to consider now is the fact that he will be a good boy, but can you guarantee that he will not do in 6 months' time exactly what he's been doing for the last 5 years in contravention of the Licensing Act 2003? And that's the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah, we are very well. Thank you, Mr. Lloyd, for your contribution. Can I ask you to take your hand down? We are very well aware that is for this committee to think through this morning. That's a very good comment. Mr. Early, would you like to come back on anything that Mr. Lloyd's just said? To be fair to you, sir.
I take Paul's comment, but I totally disagree with him. The fact that I do take things on board. I mean, when Paul first removed the DPS back in January from me, but he never stated the fact that he didn't have any, you know, what it's come out here that he had. It's what he told the authorities. It was purely taking the license away. Out. No, it didn't give me a reason. He just did it and went on about the house next door. And you know, I comforted the man when he'd been breaking down in tears. So, you know, I think there's a lot of things that Mr. Lloyd says I'd reject that. And yes, the bans. I didn't say let's petition the ban. I'm merely the fact it was our first gig. What you thought? Do you think? And you know, let's go forward. But you know, you didn't say at that point, well, I think, you know, we're going to get complaints. I had one complaint on that day ring me. One person rang, and I said, you know, I'm really sorry. I apologize profusely on the phone if it was causing a problem. And I wanted to compensate them. So I was asking, well, whereabouts are you? Tell me where you are. Come and have a free meal. You know, I do apologize that it's for charity. You know, we've learned from that. And we turn the music down a notch. If I don't know where the complaint was coming from, I can't help that. It's like with the bone thing with the egg. It was, you know, I compensated the lady that originally came, and that's why I did get hot-headed with trading standards. The fact is that I dealt with the matter, compensated, give them a free meal. You know, I know it's not, you know, it's not. I don't have to pay somebody off or anything, but it's if people don't complain to me, I don't know there's a complaint. It's only when people go to authorities, I suppose. But I'm very approachable. Everyone in this village knows that I'm approachable. And from what Mr. Lloyd and Mr. Draycott and I've forgotten your other name, your colleague, has all said, Mr. Bateman, you know, we've never sat down and chatted and talked. I don't know how emails. I'm not very good at writing. I do apologise. I may come across as arrogant, but I'm not arrogant. I listen to what everyone is saying. I'm totally on board. Bettering ourselves to go forward.
Thank you, Mr. Early. I think, yeah, if you could just mute yourself, please. It sounds to me, and you can comment or not. Can you just mute yourself, Aki? It sounds to me that you're quite a good team, and I recognise that, and this committee recognises different people have different strengths, but we have to consider the 4 primary things regarding licensing going forward. Ms. Casey, can I ask you for your summation on everything that's been said, and we will come back with questions if we may, please.
Hi, yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, there's a few points I'd like to make. Mr. Bateman, firstly, you made a comment about the DPS suggestions to Paul Lloyd. I don't know whether you're all aware, but he refused all of our DPS suggestions. So making it impossible for us to sell alcohol. That was one thing that Mr. Bateman spoke about. So I'd like to mention that. Mr. Draycott, also John Byron mentioned that we also added no amplified music inside and outside. So I'm hoping that goes a long way towards our application, and we're fully 100% willing to uphold that, and there won't be any amplified music. Like I said prior, just acoustic indoors is what we're aiming for. Like Tim said, Tim and I are too old for loud music, you know, and Tim's 52 and I'm nearly 52, and we're way too old for that. So yeah, and also there's one thing I'd like to say about what Mr. Lloyd mentioned. The Facebook post that I put up was purely to let the community know what was actually going on here at the Fox, because we have people turning up and we're not open, we're a CAF, we're closing at 2 during the week, and we're allowed to sell alcohol Friday, Saturday and Sunday because we applied for temporary events notice purely for alcohol sales. And so that, I'm sure you've seen the Facebook post. It was purely, nothing derogatory to Paul Lloyd, but purely to let our community know what was actually going on here at the Fox. And that's what I'd like to say.
Thank you, Ms. Casey. I think we have Mr. Lloyd. I'm not going to allow you to come back at this stage. Okay. My committee, have you got any questions of Ms. Casey? No. I think Mr. Draycott, Mr. Bateman, would you like to come back with anything on anything that's been said? Mr. Bateman.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, no, just to say, obviously, all the information with regards to the complaints and when they occurred is all recorded within the appendices for everyone's attention. And just on the final point from Ms. Casey with regards to the DPS, which perhaps is better answered by the administration of John Bryan, but obviously it's up to Mr. Lloyd to determine who he wishes to have as a DPS, and that's nothing that we have any power over in terms of whether he chooses or does not choose a certain person who's put forward by the applicants. Thank you, Chair and panel.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Bateman. Mr. Drake, would you like to come back on anything?
I think I've said all I need to say. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed. Mr. Lloyd, I will let you come back under general comments. Okay. There you go. You can come back on there, Mr. Lloyd.
Oh, yeah, only on the DPS. I said my solicitor wrote to them on the 18th of August explaining the whole legal position. And if they'd come up with a designated premises supervisor, I would have considered putting them in place, but they never came up with one. I also volunteered to be the DPS myself, but they didn't ask me to stand back in. So there was no ulterior motive on my part in trying to close the pub down. My solicitor's letter, 18th of August, clearly states, if you can find a suitable DPS, you can reopen. And if you want me to stand back in, I'm quite happy to stand back in, but they decided they want to go under their own steam, which I can understand. I don't have a problem with them doing that, but I did volunteer to be the DPS.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Lloyd. Mr. Early, would you like to make a final comment on that? No, we can't hear you, Mr. Early. You're still muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, no, I think the stipulation, the stipulations that Mr. Lloyd gave me about reinstating himself as DPS or putting myself as DPS, I think that we talked back in February or March time about reinstating me as DPS. He said to me that he'd put the paperwork in. I assumed I was DPS for the whole of the summer, but it wasn't. It was, there was going forth, back and forth, back and forth. But I think my point was the fact that the stipulations were that I was going to sign a new 20-year lease, and my business partner to be barred from the establishment. So it was a very big decision. It's a difficult decision to make. I can't bar a business partner, and I can't. I don't want to sign a new 20-year lease, and and I wasn't prepared to up the rent either. That was the sort of stipulation that Mr. Lloyd was either made me DPS or himself DPS. But that's all I want to say, I think, on that one.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Early. I'm going to
Can't hear again.
Make any final comments in a moment. Mr. Early, can you just mute? That's great. I'm going to ask Mr. Bryant if he would like to make any summation on everything that he's heard this morning.
Chair, panel members, thank you. No, I think the persons making the representations have fully covered their representations. It's backed up in the appendices. The applicants have detailed their application in detail for yourselves. Unless there's anything further that I can help yourself or the panel with in respect to the administration of the application, I think that's it, Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Bryant. Very, very helpful. And thank you to everybody that's spoken this morning. I think we've got a very broad picture of Fox, which needs to be a community asset, which that's what this committee would like to see. But I must remind everyone that once again, that the main points that we need to consider are going forward: the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, the prevention of public nuisance, and the protection of children from harm. That will form the thrust of our thoughts as we look to make a decision. We're going to move into, we're going to move out of the public meeting now and into a time of consultation. You will receive information, you will receive a final decision by post. Is that correct, Franca?
Yes, Chairman, that's correct. We will be moved to a breakout room and the meeting will actually come to an end, so the other participants can leave. And after the decision, once the decision has been made, I will try and get the decision out as soon as possible. It will be this week that the decision letter will be sent out to everybody. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. And thank you to everybody that's spoken this morning. We're going to move into that consultation meeting right now. Thank you very much indeed, everyone.